In those early days of my rabbinate, people, as was true before me as well, people would come in during morning minyan seeking tzedakah. And usually it was Jews who came in, but it wasn't exclusively. Some of the people from the street came in as well. Frank came in, Joel came in, Sheila came in. People who, homelessness is a funny thing. It's one day, someone is literally on the street. Then for a week they have a garage, they're renting somewhere. Then they get kicked out of the garage, and then they're on the street again. So people are homeless on and off. Then there are people who are homeless all the time. What began to happen is they realized, they just saw, oh, his father must have been a social worker. Because then they waited for me after davening to tell me their stories. So I began to learn who these folks were, where they came from, and the backgrounds they came from, how they came to be in the situation that they're in. And I would say, hang on a second, and I would write them a small check from my discretionary account to make it out to cash. They can always cash it. There's always someone who will cash a check and make it out to cash, even though they have no ID, and it worked. So I started with a group of 7 or 8 people who I'd see regularly once a week. Sometimes they'd ring the office bell, and then 7 or 8 became 12 or 15, and 15 became 25, and I couldn't have our receptionist answering the door at any given moment, interrupting her work, and some of the people were a little sketchy looking. So I said, Chevra, here's what we're going to do. Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock Wednesday morning, everybody come. I'm going to have vouchers for the Ralph supermarket, which is the big supermarket chain, that we can get alcohol or tobacco, in theory. So I was giving out these Ralph's vouchers. And 30 became 35, and 40 became 45. This started to get a little bit expensive, although people started making contributions because they saw what was going on, which was the first indication that maybe it's not just me. People who may not have wanted to engage personally, but they saw what was going on, and suddenly I was getting larger checks coming into the discretionary account because people knew what was happening on Wednesday mornings. That's one piece. And then parallel to that, and I think Rabbi Sam Feinsmith, who was an intern with us at the time, some people know Sam.
Yeah, he was on RSD.
Oh, there you go. So Sam was interning with us at the time. He came for Sukkot. And I was sitting, this is the most fortuitous thing in the world, I was sitting in a backyard in a sukkah. It wasn't an official shul program of any kind. There's a bunch of people who got together. I asked Sam to say a Dvar Torah in the sukkah. And a fellow named my dear friend David Nimmer was sitting there. And Sam gave a Dvar Torah about what is Sukkot Shalom. Sukkot Shalom is a sukkah whose doors are open like Abraham and Sarah's tent, and anyone and everyone can come in and have a meal and hear words of thanksgiving to God, like Abraham and Sarah. That's what we mean by Sukkot Shalom. So I don't know if that's what we mean by Sukkot Shalom or not, but it was an arresting image. And David Nimmer turns to me, member of the shul, former president of the shul, and he says, "We have to do that. We have to have a Sukkot Shalom." And from there was born the Tikkun Olam lunch, which the next one is Thursday at 12:15. If you're in the neighborhood, it's this Thursday at 12:15. So the Wednesday is, at this point I'm now giving away these gift cards. I have 130 people coming for Ralph's gift cards on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. And this is an interesting thing, by the way. I had to cut it. And I had to make a cap, because the day that we had over 200 people and I didn't have enough cards, there was a riot. Yeah, a real riot, but there was, yeah. And that's a whole other story. Sometimes you have to know what your limits are. You only have the resources that you have. Anyway, so the Tikkun Olam lunch is born. And when David and I sat down to conceive of what this would be, it became very important that this is not just about food, it's about community. The idea is that the folks who would be coming to the Tikkun Olam lunch, many of the same people who are getting the Ralph grocery cards the previous day, they lack community. They are living on the outside of the community, even though they're in this huge city with hustling and bustling and people walking by, but people walking right by them. They are always pressing their noses against the glass of community. And so we would invite shul members to come, and everyone would sit together and eat the same food. And we would always have, and David would always choose a conversation topic. And they would say, this week I was thinking about, what year was that? I was thinking about the events in Cairo and what they say about the human spirit. And does anyone here have anything to say about the events in Cairo and what it says about the human spirit? And it's remarkable. People have things to say. They really do have things to say. And people who you would never, we pass them on the street, we assume they're sort of mute. Oh no, they've got things to say. They hang out in the library. Totally. They read the newspapers. A lot of them are very well educated, and something happened. And that's the whole, different things happen to people. Mental illness, different things happen. People have a lot of things to say. And the conversation was very vibrant. And then over time, there were a couple of women who wanted to share song. And Ellen, who sings apparently in her church, she shares her songs. And then Edie sings Yiddish songs that most of the words she remembers from her youth. And people began to sing. And I decided that what I was going to do Bible study. Because this is a community. We're getting together in a synagogue. And, and people know Bible stories. They all know Bible stories. And, you start talking about, Moses and Egypt. Or you start talking about Mount Sinai, the Ten Commandments. Start talking about Adam and Eve. Or, they know. They can all, everyone's got something to say. And this really became a community lunch. And people come not so much for the food. They come as much for the camaraderie and the community as they come for the food. But now came kind of the crisis. The crisis came in 2008, and you have I give you a couple of sources. It's on page 51. It's on top page 51. What started to happen was that the Chevra became so familiar and so comfortable with our facility. And with me, and with David, and with all the people who they saw at the lunches, they became so comfortable that they started to hang out and sleep in the entranceways to so these cutouts that are somewhat sheltered. They would begin to sleep in the entranceways to the shul. And what that would mean was that when people would come to Minyan in the morning, all around the building, and think about it, it's December or January, coming to Minyan at 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, it's dark. It's dark, and you don't necessarily see the people who are there, and it became a very frightening kind of experience for people coming to shul. And I began to get, at first people, I always know who to ask, because people don't come to me. They start whispering to other people, hoping that it will be filtered. But I began to realize we've got an issue here, and the truth of the matter is that the Chevra, they are kind of overstepping their bounds in a certain way. You can't block the entrance to the Beit Midrash with your stuff, because they have stuff. A lot of people have stuff. I don't know what the stuff is, but it's in a lot of bags, and sometimes it's on a cart, and there's in suitcases, and there's stuff. They have stuff. And for a long time, I did nothing about this. I kept telling people I'm going to do something, I'm going to figure something out, and I was doing nothing. And I got up one morning, I don't have more, but I think it was spring 2008. I don't have a date on this particular talk. And I decided I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to do, but more importantly, why it took me so long, and why for so long I did nothing. And I'm bringing this to you as a way in which I think I successfully used the pulpit to push this forward when it hit a critical moment at which the whole thing was threatening to sort of unravel. Because if I really did nothing and I couldn't push the thing forward, I would have to start pulling it back, which would have been awful. And so I got up and I said, look, I'm going to be very honest with you. This is something I should have done something about a month ago or 2 months ago, and I didn't do anything about it. And it's a real problem, and I acknowledge it. But here's why I didn't do anything. Though I will tell you, I said to them what we are going to do. And we looked at these texts from Rambam at the top of page 51, which are remarkable. Because Rambam is not known as